Hello, everyone. Hope you are well on this Thursday afternoon. It is December the 12th, and the drone talk continues. It's like that's the only story around. I know there's other stuff going on, but more theories are emerging. I'll go over two of them that sound plausible to me. I'll see what you think. One of them sounds a lot scarier than the other. None of them are good news. Both of the new ones I'm going to tell you about are not good news at all. Not a good thing. So there's that. But one of the scenarios is way scarier than the other, and it's one that I heard later last night, and I'll go over that one. Also have a very good passage that I will share with you towards the end of the video. So do stay tuned for that one. It's encouraging. It's good news. Even if I'm bringing bad news part of the video, I always end up with good news. So keep that in mind and bear with me. No good scenarios as far as the drone thing, y'all. And it mystifies me. Two things of, if our government truly doesn't know what these are and don't have the ability to interact with it, then we're in deeper trouble than we ever thought. And then number two is Trump is silent on this. The president-elect has not weighed in on this, but he weighs in on a lot of other things. So I wonder why. Maybe he's kind of like us. He's just waiting for more information. That's possible. But he talks a lot, so I'm surprised he hasn't said something about it or weighed in, So that's interesting. That makes me think. But this is a serious situation. A lot of people are joking. It's funny. And I think a lot of people are still clueless. Like we saw a post on a social media not far from our neighborhood last two nights, saying, one of them said, I'm on my way home. They were driving in from Atlanta on Interstate 85, heading north, kind of where we live. And they made a comment. They said, I'm seeing three to five aircraft that look like drones. And I think that's unusual. Is anybody else noticing these things? What's going on? Like they were not aware of this whole story, right? So Miss Dawg read it and says, people are clueless. What the heck's wrong with them? They don't keep up with current events. I said, yeah, a lot of people are totally clueless about a lot of things. So it's very interesting. But it's a serious situation, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions. But, how do we not know that these things don't present a danger to the public? When the authorities say we don't believe that they pose a danger, well, how do you know that for sure? That, to me, that implies that you do know what's going on with them, Representative Jeff Van Drew from New Jersey is doubling down on his theory that they are from Iran. Now, he did expand it and say it could be another adversary, but he thinks that it's an adversary doing this to us from some ship out in the Atlantic somewhere, and they're flying in. My question is, why can't we put a helicopter, Apache or something, and follow the darn things back to where they go and deal with it? You know what I mean? Another part of me thinks that if it got low enough, how would it interact with a buckshot round? Sooner or later we're going to hear about something like that. We really are. I think, depending if these things ever try to go into a rural area, I think that could be a little different. But anyway, he's saying that they're adversarial, and they're big enough to carry a payload, y'all, to carry things. Now, one theory that I heard last night on the Prepper Now channel, he was talking about this, is that he saw this theory on X, I believe, and it talked about the drones, that they think that the drones are our drones, the U.S. government drones, and that they are sniffing or searching for a nuclear threat or EMP threat that has been planted throughout our ports through our open border. That's scary as hell. And it's plausible. And that would explain that, if that's true, that would explain why the government is like, we don't know what they are. That's what, like that. That's what they're told to say. And part of this theory is that the government cannot announce what they're doing because it would really cause all-out mayhem. Can you imagine if you told much of the northeastern United States that they're our drones and we're looking for nukes because we think they've hidden nukes in places? They're not going to say that, right? You would really have a panic on your hands. Can you imagine? But it's plausible. I mean, what do you guys think about that theory? These things are also being seen in New York, Virginia, Missouri. I've heard them in Georgia. I've heard them in Tennessee, Kentucky, a lot of different states, Texas. Again, we have not noticed them out in our neck of the woods, so to speak. That would be interesting, but not so far, at least. Also, there are reports that whatever these things are flying over, even homes or automobiles, that their clocks change. Like the microwave, your clocks on your microwave ovens, your radios, I guess, your stoves, they're changing the clocks. Even in automobiles, they're changing the clocks. So that's interesting. And then there's also reports that if people have tried to put smaller drones up to get up close to these things, and when they start getting close to these things, they're suddenly disabled. Their battery life goes from 100 to 0%, and they just drop. So that's interesting, which would make sense with the next theory I'm going to go into. And that is, I saw this today, that some intelligence or former intelligence analysts, including a former U.S. Army general with experience in this stuff, they believe that Russia is behind this, and that these are highly sensitive, very, very high-tech drones that are originating from Russia. He didn't go into how they're getting here, probably from a ship somewhere. They have a naval presence in Cuba. Think about that too. But he said these drones, he says, I've had time to really look at this and analyze this and look at a lot of footage. And he says they sound and look, at least from from what we understand, they sound like Russian Orlan, O-R-L-A-N, Orlan 10 drones. They're secretive craft, and they fly in packs. They fly in packs of 3 to 5, circling over something that they're gathering intelligence. He says, and they're circling a lot over this Picatinny Arsenal Center. They manufacture armaments, artillery, ammunition that are being sent to the Ukraine. So they're really circling over and doing a lot of looking at military installations, specifically that has to do with sending armaments to the Ukraine. He said this is also occurring in the UK and throughout Europe, where they are also flying over sensitive military installations as well, especially ones that are sending arms to Ukraine to be used against Russia. So that makes sense too. But their intelligence gathering mission, he says they call it ferreting, testing our airspace defense and response times. They're not talked about a lot in the U.S. media, but they're well documented and discussed more in Europe. They're also flying over water reservoirs, electronic transmission lines, rail stations, police departments, and military installations. They have the red, white, and green lights. This is what he said. They remind him of these. He thinks that's what they are. He says they are equipped with optical and thermal vision cameras. They can jam other electronic devices. This is electronic warfare, he's saying. He said they can fly. They typically fly 4,000 to 5,000 feet up. They can go a lot lower, and they can also go up as high as 20,000 feet, y'all. Think about that for a drone. These are not your run-of-the-mill drones. He says they're about the size of a small car, up to 20,000 feet. I'm surprised one hasn't collided with an airplane, to tell you the truth. But he says this is ferreting. This is intentional testing of our airspace defense, and they're trying to trigger a response. That's the number one mission, he thinks. The number two mission of these things is a psyops. It's psychological warfare. It's to influence the general public of a rival nation with the effort to weaken the popular support for that nation, that home government, and their policies overseas. Russia's good at that. That makes sense also. They could also be mapping targets. Hello, remember they have hypersonic missile technology. We have virtually no defense against that. They have a naval presence south of us in Cuba, y'all. A threat to public safety? I would say yes. So those are the two theories. Share your thoughts. If it's not one of those two theories, I don't know. The first one I mentioned seems a lot even more scarier to me. Neither one of them are good. Neither one of them are good. But anyway, those are the two new theories since my last video on this yesterday. But again, what do you guys think? I'm going to go to a passage here in a moment. But we'll keep an eye on this stuff. Also keeping an eye on other things as well. People say, well, we're distracted by this. No, we can do more than one thing at the time. We're looking at other news. But I think this is it's not just only interesting. I think it's a threat. I think it's when's the last time you've thought, the last time I can think of any story like this was the Chinese spy balloon that we allowed to crisscross the nation before we finally took one out, and there's no telling how many of them were flying around before the public caught on to it, So I'm going to go to a passage. I'm going into Acts, the book of Acts. The book of Acts chapter 2 verse 21 says, "And it shall be that everyone who calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved," y'all. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. Amen. Amen. And, no matter what times we're in, especially these times, in modern times, and our lives, so much going on, is that we need to stay close. Stay close to Jesus. We say it all the time, but let's focus on that first. Okay, that's the number one prep, of course. But let's stay in prayer as well, and do what we can to support each other here. So anyway, let's be safe out there. Be careful. Be aware of your surroundings, and just be safe. God bless y'all. I'll see you soon.